Let me tell you, dude, it is very hard for me to stop listening to this set. It's one of my all-time favorite sets. DJ Chemistry and Storm, R.I.P. DJ Chemistry, died in a car accident. But one of my favorite sets of all time. On the Metalhead's imprint. Jungle, drum and bass. If you know, you know. I will be ready in about somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. Hang on and enjoy the set. A legendary set. DJ Kicks, 1999, I think. I gotta say though, that was one of my least favorite tunes on the set. Not satisfactory. Yep, inevitable. Yeah, gotta remember to work this shit again. Professional streaming right here. All right, here we go. Habibi, if you can send the link to this amazing mix, that would be the best thing. Oh, hello, Kiko. Eccles. Overlord Dumplank, what's up? You need Neg to co-stream with? I don't think so. No, you don't understand the chemistry that Keckles and I have. And no one really needs Neg. No one needs some white boy to tell us what to do. Tell us how to be civilized. Just kidding. We love Neg. We love Ghost in here. This is space for fans with food with any sort of flavor at all. Yep. Mr. Sidious, hello. I don't believe I've seen you before, but look him in. First, Neg is the best. Sure he is. It doesn't surprise me that somebody who loves Max would have that opinion. Anyway, we're going to talk about a festival in Australia. This is going to be a short stream. I felt that I had to... this is part of my twice a month at least bit of Australian news. Because I do live in this country. For better or worse. Mostly worse. But, what we have here is a writer by the name of, I just scratched a wound into my arm. That's not good. That's gonna sting in the morning. Well, we have a writer who has voiced certain anti-Zionist opinions. She is Palestinian, ethnically, though she was born here. And there is a major arts festival in South Australia, in Adelaide, called the Adelaide Festival. And within that festival, there is a segment called the Adelaide Writers Week, in which a bunch of writers are invited to talk about their books and, you know, various themes they're in, why they wrote the books, what they're talking about, their life experiences, a chance for the punters, which is what we call the audience here in Australia, to ask them questions about what the book was about, what was your life about, what were you thinking when you wrote this, etc., etc., etc. So I feel like her name is Rhonda Abdulhada. I may be wrong about that. Oh, thank you for the subscription, Keko. Keckles and I are now just subscribing to each other. We're just like swapping payments every month. as far as that goes. But So she was barred from that under pressure from the Zionist lobby here in Australia, which is substantial. And as a result, well, I'll tell you about that later because it is funny. But at the moment, we have the John West report. John West, premier Australian political economist who writes about various issues pertaining to the Australian condition. And here is what he has to say about this topic. And I will voice some opinions a bit later, but in the meantime, I will leave it all up to John West. I have been drinking a bit. It is Friday night.
Most effective public relations. The Australians might have voted down The Voice in Albo's
Thank you very much for the sub, though, Kiko. That's very flattering.
Or a referendum, we're getting The Voice for Israel. Not just in the Royal Commission, which was announced yesterday.
I did that a few minutes ago. I itched a scab and now my skin's going woo-woo. I like this resolution. Is it bad? Hello, Dr. Zoidberg. Welcome in.
Finally by Albo, but in the recommendations of the anti-Semitism czar Gillian Siegel, which...
Okay, actually it's occurred to me that I'm going to have to pause a lot here. So, Anthony Albanese, for those of you who are uninitiated, is our Prime Minister. He's from the Labour Party, which is our Democrats, basically. Just for the North Americans out there, and for people who are outside of both spheres, who understand what the Democrats are better than what Australian Labour is.
Finally by Albo, but in the recommendations of the anti-Semitism czar Gillian...
So we recently appointed, like in the past year, we have appointed a anti-Semitism czar, who is somebody who her role is to talk about anti-Semitism and how it's increased, which I think the jury, any kind of honest jury, is out on that. They were also going to appoint an anti-Islamophobia, which is a term that I don't like, but they were going to implement an anti-Islamophobia czar, which was later downgraded to kind of like a miscellaneous anti-racism czar, and that person has not achieved anywhere close to the same amount of mainstream media airtime as Gillian Siegel has.
Siegel, which seeks to...
Because nobody likes Arabs. Okay, let's just be honest. That's what that's about. Nobody likes Arabs. There was a... there's a... What's it called? A company that does statistics who phoned out and asked for the Australian point, like the Australian views, negative and positive views of various religious groups. And the only group to achieve a negative score was Muslims at minus 19, which is not surprising. I mean, we all expect that instantly. Anytime there's a shooting, yeah, Muslims are going to go down. Minus 19. Hindus also went down. Buddhists also went down. Christians at the highest approval rate at plus 20. And I think the Jews were like, I think also plus 20. Something like that. It's not important. But suffice it to say, Muslims were at the very bottom of that at minus 19, which I guess implies a 31% approval rating on the part of Australians. Not a surprise if you live here. Not a surprise if you lived through September 11.
Muzzle criticism of Israel in Australia. In a stunningly successful public relations campaign, PRPR, the Israel lobby, in league with the coalition...
Is this equivalent to Australia's Barry Weiss? No. John West is not Barry Weiss at all. No. He's more like I'm not gonna say he's Hassan, but trying to think of an equivalent. Who would he be? He may be. Maybe Brianna Joy Gray, except more prominent within the Australian context.
And the Murdoch media has succeeded in forcing Albo into a Royal Commission.
Was that a few minutes ago?
But
Okay.
not just that, they even tried to derail. his
Look,
tri-
I've just got, this is my second stream after a very long time. I've had a little bit. And, I'm not used to questions. I'm not used to interacting with people on the internet.
pick as commissioner at the 11th hour, the respected jurist Virginia Bell, former High Court, who he had selected. They tried to sideline that selection in about a frantic 11th hour lobby
Harry
by
Boops,
Zionist
hello.
Josh
Nice to see you.
Frydenberg, who was on the front page of the Israeli and other Murdoch rags, smearing Bell as unthinkable, too progressive.
So, Dr. Zoidberg has said, a left independent journalist. Like, I think that when John West, when West started out with his, I think he thought he was a centrist, actually, because the whole centrist position is very popular here in Australia. But when West started out, he was like, well, okay, I'm in the middle. I'm just going to report the truth. But inevitably, what happened was, he was just like, oh, apparently I'm on the left because I'm talking about the truth. So, you know, that's not an uncommon position for a lot of people in the West. So, but props to him.
According to Josh, that's doublespeak, of course, for not reliably pro-Israel enough, too progressive. Doesn't like genocide, probably. We don't know that yet. So Albo caved in on the Royal Commission, thanks to the PR blitz, but he held firm
Albo is
on
Anthony
Virginia
Albanese, our
Bell,
Prime
his
Minister.
selection as Royal Commissioner. And what a year Virginia is going to have. It is going to be huge because it's going to get worse before it gets better. As long as Benjamin Netanyahu is in office in Israel and there is no regime change, they are out of control, as everybody knows. So the elephant in the room, blithely ignored in all this when Albo gave a presser.
25k. Inquire to see how we can help you unlock this
Oh,
deposit
okay,
and get
thank
into
you.
a new home today. So that means if you've got a 5,000.
Thank you,
Doorstop
Opera GX.
yesterday in front of the press gallery journos, the gaggle of press gallery journos, not one of them asked the obvious question. Will the behaviour of Israel and its adherents here, its acolytes, its disciples in the Zionist lobby, will that be investigated as a potential source, maybe, of anti-Semitism? Or is it just going to be peace protesters on the Harbour Bridge who are going to come in for a gruelling examination? Will it be the war between the Zionists and the pro-Palestinian Peace Brigade decrying the genocide? Will that be ignored in the Royal Commission? We'll get to it in a moment. The simple fact is that people don't like genocide.
Yeah, I
They
think-
don't like watching children having their limbs blown off by the IDF. They don't
Yes,
like
I think
murder,
that
they
is
don't
an
like
unfortunate
land theft,
coincidence,
and they
Dr.
don't like
Zoidberg.
hypocrisy and all the things that go along with Hasbara, or the Israel propaganda.
I might be wrong that his name is
Hasbara.
John, though.
We all have encounters with daily on social media. It's simple. It won't end until there's regime change in Israel. About the time that Albo was declared...
I will send you the link, and by the way, I take no responsibility for getting people's names wrong. I've just come back from a 4-hour session on dialysis, and I've had a bit to drink.
his Royal Commission. News
It's a
broke.
Friday night.
Didn't see it covered anywhere except Michael West Media here in Australia. The subject is
It's Michael West.
the UN inquiry report. A good report, 40 pages detailed, which found inexorably that Israel was an apartheid state. Israel is an apartheid state. Yes, it's obvious, but now we have more corroboration in the form of a report from the United Nations, which found aggressively apartheid
Michael
activities
West,
in
indeed.
the treatment of Palestinians by the regime in Israel. Practices and laws. It won't end until the genocide and the apartheid ends. The world has been mobilised. Indeed, until the extremists in this country and elsewhere disavow the actions and the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. That,
In case you're wondering, Mark Liebler is a partner in a influential law firm, and he's a major Zionist. But he does all the liberal Zionist stuff, like saying, oh, indigenous rights and all that stuff. But then he's like, when it comes to Arabs, men and people, he's like, oh, they're all jihadist, actually.
is the problem.
That's this guy.
As anti-Semitism. Look at the Adelaide Writers' Festival. Look what's just happened there. Yesterday too. Adelaide Writers' Festival, the sort of premier cultural event in South Australia. We've spoken there a couple of times. We've hosted sessions at the Adelaide Writers' Festival. It's fantastic. And what's happened? The Zionists have somehow got to the board of the festival, who's put pressure on Louise Adler, the festival organiser, the Writers' Festival organiser, who is a progressive anti-Zionist Australian Jew, and they've had Randa Abdel Fattah canned from the event because of her.
Yeah, so Louise Adler, I think she's a signatory. I think she's actually a member of the Australian Jewish Council, which is kind of new. It's new, but it's a council that was formed amongst progressive anti-Zionist Jews in Australia who were opposed to, obviously, the genocide. Had a lot of the Zionist influence in Australia. And she happens to be the head of... I think she's the director of the Adelaide Festival. If she's not that, then she's the director of the Adelaide Writers' Week. And she was like resisting for weeks, saying, we're not going to get rid of Dr. Randa Abdel Fattah. But an announcement was made from a board who overrode her wishes. So she's been sidelined. And by the way, in most news articles, when they talk about one side versus another, they've been very clear that the people who wanted Dr. Randa Abdel Fattah to be excluded were Jewish, but they have excluded the Jewishness of the opposition. A question of acceptable Jewishness in this country. What's happening?
What's happened? The Zionists have somehow got to the board of the festival, who's put pressure on Louise Adler, the festival organiser, the Writers' Festival organiser, who is a progressive anti-Zionist Australian Jew, and they've had Randa Abdel Fattah canned from the event because of her pro-Palestinian stance. Peter Malinowskis's prints are all over this, and we're yet to get to the bottom of what has happened there. But this is political, just another thing destroyed by the Israel lobby in Australia. So we'll get to Albo's Royal Commission and the terms of the Royal Commission shortly, which are the important bit, the fine print.
Noodles,
what are they
hello.
going to have a Royal Commission about? But just to the public relations and media campaign, the blitz which we've seen since the Bondi tragedy. This, the Israel lobby PR campaign, is a triumph of what they call astroturfing, which is a fake grassroots campaign made to look by ordinary Australians, but really powerful vested interests, in this case, those barracking for Israel. And so it was at this PR campaign across the newspapers, across the media mastheads in Australia. Every day. If it wasn't sports leaders for Israel one day, it was lawyers for Israel the next. Business leaders call for a Royal Commission. Doctors, Catholic bishops, Labor has-beens, as the excellent cartoonist in the Herald pointed out. Former Victorian premiers. It was going to go down to beekeepers, tradies and cafe owners, as people were joking on social media. They were going to keep on going, so Albo caved. All roped in, these people, by PR operatives and lobbyists every day. One group trotted out per day, putting their signature to calls for a Royal Commission. The bizarre crowning glory, in the humble opinion of this essayist here, was this rip snorter by the Israeli newspaper picturing the swimming legend Thorpe Ian.
This part is important. Hello, Iris. Why are you in here? Why have you finished so early? Everybody who's in Kairos' stream, leave immediately. Don't expect gratitude for me. For your raid. Okay. I don't know. We're talking about Australia. You're gonna be bored, so just leave now. But, no, I love Kairos. Oh, what's the command? This is Twitch etiquette. I'm gonna have to do the thing. Kairos is a Brazilian streamer who lives in Europe. He plays with his hair a lot. He's very knowledgeable. He's a good-looking guy. I have to say that much. He has a dog and a cat and a wife and a family. If you have watched... I made myself laugh with that joke. If you've ever watched All the President's Man, you'll understand that joke. No, but he does have a dog and a cat and possibly a wife. He's Brazilian. He speaks Portuguese. He does very good accents. And he does very good metal. Like, renditions. He's got quite a good metal voice, if you could handle the irritation of that. So go give Kairos a follow. A very good... one of my favorite leftist streamers. We joke about how we're sort of doppelgangers of each other, except from different parts of the world, because we're both brown. We're thinking of doing a podcast. So do follow Kairos. He's also... I'm pretty sure he's quite neurodivergent in a way that's not as forgiving as I am, where he will interrogate you if you say the wrong thing. He'll interrogate you for like an hour. so just be aware of that. Yeah. I should do more shoutouts. He did a picture of me, which was very unflattering, which I don't think I'll acknowledge. And follow Keiko. Beautiful Mexican Indian man. One of the earliest friends who I've made on Twitch. A beautiful man who I've sworn to meet someday. Also brown, in case you didn't guess from the Mexican Indian part. Anyway, welcome in. I don't care if you stay or leave. Do whatever the fuck you have to do. I'm talking about Australian politics here. If you find that boring, I don't blame you. But we're talking about the Zionist influence in Australia right now. Short stream. Because I had to get this off my chest.
Thorpe with the headline, Australia sports greats plea to PM, call a royal commission or risk losing Olympics. Oh no, not the Olympics, not the Olympics. It was all very Ray-Gun, but too...
I'm not looking at chat.
Herself, the great break dancer, was not roped in with other ordinary Australian legends such as Wayne Carey and Sam Newman into the Royal Commission signatory role. Many look to be clients of Sky News Sky News' Sherry Marks and her father, the PR guy Max Marks, and somebody had a phone list. Anyway, everybody got the call when you sign up, and one can only wonder whether these ordinary Australian legends might feel a little grifted down the track with the passage of time, as indeed must the 6 Australian former PMs who famously did what Mark Liebler wanted. That's the godfather of Zionism in Australia, of the Israel lobby. They signed Mark's letter, trotting out the Israel propaganda in late October or November 2023, lending licence to the atrocities which were about to unfold, which were already unfolding in Gaza. The 6 former PMs got roped in, and now the ordinary Australian legends in the present astroturfing campaign. This astroturfing wonder. The contact was a Liberal PR person called Gemma Daly, just one of a team who appears to be working with other Israel lobby types, such as Josh Frydenberg, who's been everywhere Joshy, and they soak the front pages every day, particularly when news goes to die. Tabloids, broadsheets, morning radio, follow-ups, morning TV follow-ups. It was business leaders one day, sports stars the next. They all got used by the PR industry.
Dave down the road said we should use the same real estate agent he used.
Can we trust what Dave says?
I don't know. I just want a good one.
Acting on behalf of the Israel lobby, and they
Pretend
ran the
this didn't
narrative that
happen.
Albo was weak for not acceding to calls for a royal commission. The grotesque politicisation of the Bondi tragedy, the worst we've seen in our living memory. Any critics, of course, are slammed as anti-Semitic. Not that 80% of Australians would know what anti-Semitic was really, but anyway, it did the trick. They got it off the front pages. The ABC sort of went along for the ride a bit. Not much piercing analysis going on there. SBS is missing in action as always on this particular topic, and Sky News did what Sky News does. Now, we'd supported calls for a Royal Commission here, against what most progressive people were saying, that we don't need one because there's already the Richardson review going on, and there was a New South Wales
I'm not
Royal
looking
Commission
at
by
chat.
Chris Minns anyway, with
Talk
which
amongst
the
yourselves.
feds were going to cooperate. So we didn't really need one, but that's not what the Israel lobby and the Murdoch industry wanted. They wanted narrow terms, which just looked at anti-Semitism. Nothing more, just anti-Semitism. They don't want Israel brought into it, that's for sure. We believe, and this is why we call for a Royal Commission, that this ideological conflict will not end. It will get worse before it gets better.
In case you're wondering what a Royal Commission is, if you've been following that, it's kind of like a Senate inquiry. Like a large... It's something that actually, arguably, people in Britain and Australia do when they want to have an issue bogged down in procedure and, you know, a whole lot of discursive questioning so that nothing really comes out of it. So I guess it's not all that bad that they want a Royal Commission on anti-Semitism.
It will not end until there's regime change in Israel. In any case, we thought it was a good idea because an independent judicial inquiry might help Australians to understand the difference between real anti-Semitism and fake anti-Semitism leveraged for political purposes. That people might come to understand more broadly the difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism being legitimate criticism of Israel and anti-Semitism being hatred of Jews. Anti-Semitism has been weaponised by the Israel lobby, by Murdoch and other disgraceful mainstream media, fossil media, to shield criticism of Israel, to distract. If you check out the piece by Michael Pascoe today on Michael West Media, the numbers he cites from the Scanlon report on Australian attitude to religious minorities, the numbers have it. The numbers say it all. If you look at Christians, Jews and Muslims and Australian attitudes to each one of these religious ethno groups, they say it all. The 2025 Scanlon survey showed a further slight deterioration.
Oh yeah, this is the thing that I was talking about before. The Scanlon survey. Yeah, Christians had a net positive score of 20, Jews positive 14, Hindus positive score 12, which is interesting to me, considering how much Australians seem to hate India. 6 positive 9, because I'm pretty sure that like 8 out of 10 Australians don't know what the fuck a Sikh is. And Muslims negative 19. Yeah, everybody knows what a Muslim is. They're the jihadists. They're the people who just can't wait to die at the drop of a hat. At any given moment, they see a Jew, they think about their family and their child, who they've just, they had breakfast, they left the house in the morning, 8:30 a.m. They went in their car for the job they're doing, and then they just can't help themselves. They see a Jew, they see the skull cap, and immediately they're like, I have an epigenetic duty to murder any Jew that I see. It's not at all that Christendom did that. It's not at all that pogrom is an Eastern European word. It's not at all that the Holocaust was carried out by Jews. Not at all there were expulsions carried out by the French and the British. That people were barred from certain positions all over Europe. And that same thing was not the case in the Muslim world. I have to run that guy down. That's my duty. It's written in the Quran.
In attitudes towards Hindus, Jews, Sikhs and Muslims. But the net score of positive attitudes minus negative attitudes remains starkly weighted. Christians had a net positive score of 20, Jews positive 14, Hindus positive 12, Sikhs positive 9 and Muslims negative 19. The problem is that the Israel lobby and the Murdoch press and other racist press weaponises this. This is part of the Hasbara strategy, turning Australian attitudes against Muslims. They're all to blame, is the narrative.
By the way, if you hadn't heard my spiel on this before, the strategy, like the narrative of Muslims being irrational, and I kind of mean Arabs. I mean, Muslims is a very racialized kind of in the perception of Western white people, Muslims is a being Muslim is a very racialized subgroup. When somebody says Muslim, you immediately think brown, probably Arab. I don't think that the Southeast Asian sphere is really seeped into the Western consciousness yet. Like, Indonesia is the largest, like, it's the country with the largest proportion of Muslims in it. But people don't generally think of Indonesia when they think of Muslims. They think of Arabs. Or Pan-Arabs. So North Africans, people in West Asia, possibly Pakistanis.
This Hasbara. This is the strategy to blacken Muslims to distract from what's
And it's
going on
necessary.
in Gaza.
It is a necessary narrative to propagate amongst the Western population in order to make it acceptable to kill people in that region, to kill people in West Asia. Because basically, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but basically to control the supply of oil. Because it is still a major energy source.
This has been admitted on the record by many Israeli sources.
You have to be able to kill
What is at stake here?
people in West
And this
Asia.
gets to the guts of it.
How do you do that? By homogenizing West Asia. By saying they're Muslims, they're insane, they're jihadists, look at the Quran, they love killing Jews, even though we did that, actually. And they love killing white people. You have to make it acceptable to the general population. It is a strategic narrative.
Is our freedom
Just like they
in
did with
Australia, freedom
Russia.
of speech.
Just like they did with Russia. Just like they did with the Chinese during the COVID epidemic.
Freedom of assembly to gather and protest.
It's
things
a
like
rotating
genocide and
carousel
the Vigilance
of
Seeker plan, which
outgroups.
seeks to eradicate criticism of Israel and impose the IRA definition. They want to outlaw criticism of Israel in Australia, impose restrictions on free speech, freedom of protest in every aspect of Australian society, from kindergartens, universities, to schools, to arts organisations, to local government, state government, federal government. Don't take our
good
word
chat.
for it. Check out each proposal here. It is on the record. It is scary.
elevator
The
ladies
aims of the Zionist lobby is to outlaw criticism of Israel and its apartheid, which has contaminated not just Australia, but it's contaminated the whole world. It's turned families and communities against each other. It dominates Parliament. The discussion of this dominates our Parliament. The time expended on discussing false flag attacks, changing laws on the basis of false flag attacks.
I've missed the
Things
context
which-
of the jokes,
terrorism
Keckles.
plots which turned out to be the work of petty criminals financed by unidentified parties overseas.
Maybe
It's
when I'm a little bit more
polarised
sober
Jewish
one day.
communities and everybody else. This needs to be examined by the Royal Commissioner, Virginia Bell. And this is why we were in favour of a Royal Commission all along. Is it to be the case? Well, it's not entirely clear, but if you have a look at the recommendations, the Royal Commission will cover 4 key areas as set out in the letters patent. Now, we don't know whether this is the press release or it reflects the letters patent. The detail may be slightly different, but number 1 is tackling anti-Semitism by investigating the nature and prevalence of anti-Semitism in institutions and society, and its key drivers in Australia. Surely that encompasses the behaviour of Israel and the Israel lobby, and its key drivers in Australia, including ideologically and religiously motivated extremism and radicalisation. Let's get to the
Right,
facts of
this
what
like
is
a
actually
chat.
happening here on December
Like a
14.
checking chat
ISIS
is every time.
extremists, the Akram father and son, killed 15 people at Bondi. Now we know that, and you can check the investigation, the excellent forensic investigation on our website. We know that the killer, Naveed Akram, had come to their attention in 2019 or before, at ScoMo era. ISIS
The guy's in Indian, by the way, Keckles. What do you think of that?
is to Islam, and this is very important. ISIS is to Islam what the Ku Klux Klan is to Christianity. These are extremists, just like there are Jewish extremists.
That's a good
Hindu
point.
Extremists, Christian extremists, Muslim extremists. Notwithstanding this, the Israel lobby and its flunkies here, all subsidised through charities through the ACNC, all on the freebie ticket there, we're paying for it, that they've relentlessly swept up all Muslims into this net of hatred. They blamed a lot of them. No, people are people. It's all, if you're Muslim, you're bad. If you're Jewish, you're good. It's just not reality. It's not the way the world works. It's naive. But of course, if it's repeated enough in the media, in the Hasbara, on all the platforms, then people believe it. They think the Muslims are to blame. Of course, peace protesters too, the 300,000 people which marched across the Harbour Bridge. I was there, very peaceful march, in the rain. They're to blame, apparently. I mean, that is the...
Yeah, I've been on 3 marches here. I've been on 3 protests through Perth. And I've got to say, it's like a family gathering. Like, you'll have families with their little tiny children. Everybody is like taking care not to run over the small children who are about. Nobody's... I remember the last time... So there's a main street through Perth called Barrack Street, which has a lot of small bars, little restaurants. I had a bunch of people as we were walking through, and I gotta tell you, this was my second time on a march, and I fully expected to be booed and like saying, yeah, go back. We have a lot of British people here in Western Australia who seem to like our weather, and I expected a lot of people to be like, yeah, go back home, you know, that kind of stuff. Go back to Arabia. But actually, they were just like, they were holding up their pint glasses and like cheering us on. And I was like, oh, okay. That's weird. Didn't expect that. And then we played that song. Very peaceful. Nothing insulting. We always have a large contingent of Jewish people from the Jewish Council of Australia who are marching with us.
The most preposterous thing. And the newspapers, the fossil media has run this as gospel. This is perhaps the most insidious PR campaign in this country's history. And it will backfire. It is sure to backfire because it will lead to more anti-Semitism, as the right of Australians to peaceful protest and freedom of political communication are muzzled by the Siegel recommendations, which Albo has said he's going to implement. You need to read them. I mean, they will blow you away. An organisation to monitor media, withdrawing fundings for university that aren't seen to be doing enough to combat anti-Semitism, to educate against anti-Semitism, as if we haven't seen enough Hitler TV shows and movies, while the genocide is going on in Gaza. Now, Australia's Jewish community, indeed Australia's entire community, has had, or does have, an Israel problem. This is the problem. It's foreign interference. More than any other factor, the actions of Israel and its supporters are responsible for the rise in anti-Semitism, as we've said here from the start, since November 2023, when we saw Netanyahu's brutal response against the Palestinians unfolding. The writing was on the wall then. Well and a half over 2 years later, it is just so obvious. So it became evident very quickly. And of course, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, criticism of Israel, has reached very high levels. If suddenly Australian Zionists were to disavow the actions of Netanyahu and his regime, that would help anti-Semitism. But there is no leadership. The leadership is coming from the less well-funded and less organised pro-peace groups, such as the Jewish Council of Australia. We just published a story about a letter they'd written about the Royal Commission, and they got slammed by the Zionist PR organisations for being anti-Semitic, the usual self-loathing Jews spiel. Thankfully, their opinions are being heard a little bit more, although they remain shut out of the mainstream media. They just ignore them. They just go with the extremists, the pro-Israel, pro-Netanyahu extremists. So all this is no doubt why the terms of reference, or what we can see might be the terms of reference here in the Albo press release, have included this, point 4, making any other recommendations arising out of the inquiry for strengthening social cohesion in Australia and countering the spread of ideologically and religiously motivated extremism in Australia. In our humble opinion, extinguishing the cheerleading for genocide for Israel, the government of Israel, and this is not anti-Semitic, this is political. Zionists need to disavow the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu, and that would be a big, big start. We should all come together, and if we did, there would be no anti-Semitism, because as we pointed out here, anti-Muslim sentiment runs much higher than anti-Semitism does in Australia.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. You can basically say whatever you want. I mean, I doubt that this is unique to Australia, but in the Western world, you could say anything you want about, you know, Muslims, Arabs, however you want. I like to use the term many people, because as far as white Westerners are concerned, if you're Christian, it doesn't matter. If you're like an Arab Christian, you're still a Muslim. Like, as far as white Western people see you, you're just a different kind of Muslim. You're kind of like a more Jesus-flavored Muslim.
So shout out to our sponsors, Island Optical and Optical Superstores, and all the people that support us on Patreon and here on the West Report. We really appreciate that. We're going to keep pumping up the product. Hope you're having a good 2026 so far. This is not going to end, so we can expect some more. They will keep going. They will keep going. And of course, we've got Isaac Herzog's visit, the president of...
Yeah, our Prime Minister invited Isaac Herzog, who's the president of Israel, to come over and have a visit. Once again, I remind you that Anthony Albanese is a Labour Prime Minister who is like our Democrats. Not much is different amongst centrist, the centre-left, the so-called centre-left throughout the Western world.
Israel. A complete blow-up, a brain explosion from Albo, inviting Herzog, railroading the Governor-General into inviting this guy, who has been singled out by the ICC as inciting genocide. And yet we invite him to Australia. Well, we're not allowed to protest here in New South Wales. Thanks.
I would remind you that Herzog said about Gazans that there are no innocent people in Gaza. This idea, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He said this idea that there are civilians in Gaza is not true. They're actually all guilty.
Mr. Chrissy Mossad Mins, but are we allowed to be interested observers and go along and have a look when Isaac comes out? I don't know. We'll see how it unfolds, and we'll keep bringing you the news. So thanks very much. Please like, share, and comment in the section below.
That's Michael West Media. I'm gonna draw your attention going back to the Adelaide Festival and the Adelaide Writers Week. This is Omar Sakar, who is a poet resident here in Australia. An Australian guy, not too different from me. Where they decided to uninvite Rada Abdul Hada. So it started with her. We're gonna find this. Okay, I can't log in. Oh my god. Hang on, bear with me. Bear with me. It's interesting what happened to the Adelaide Writers' Festival is what I'm trying to say. Right. So, after they uninvited Rada Abdul Sadr, 27 writers. This is within the space of about 48 hours. 27 writers then pulled out in solidarity with. So this is the list. The Adelaide Festival, including Yanis Varoufakis. Doesn't surprise me. Haven't heard a lot of these writers. And then Masha Gessen, who is a writer of note, a Russian Jewish fellow, also pulled out. After that, 29 writers, including Kenneth Roth, pulled out of the Adelaide Writers' Festival. Some Zionists said, congratulations on uninviting Randa Abdul-Sadr. He was very happy about that. Then 30 writers pulled out, including Zadie Smith. And then 50 writers pulled out. This is the list of those writers who pulled out. A substantial list. I've heard of Masha Gessen. I've heard of Zadie Smith. Obviously, Yanis Varoufakis. Amy Ramikis pulled out. Vanessa Turnbull Roberts. Kenneth Roth. And which has resulted in basically the collapse of the Writers' Week of the Adelaide Festival. So they've pulled down the entire roster of writers who've been turning up, who were supposed to turn up at the Writers' Week of the Adelaide Festival. And then it continued to, because there are other components of the Adelaide Festival aside from the Writers' Festival. So somebody named Gigi Haram, who I've never heard of, who's part of the musical component of that, has also pulled out. And latest thing, which I haven't read, 77 authors have now withdrawn from the original 123. But I gotta tell you that while we may feel a certain amount of glee and victory about this, it's important to note that the Zionist movement doesn't care if they've destroyed an entire well-established, internationally celebrated festival. They would rather burn it down than have one speaker whom they don't like speaking at that festival. That's part of the whole strategy. Zero tolerance. They will do anything to stop somebody whom they don't like speaking at a festival. But, so we'll call it a draw, shall we? Adelaide Writers' Week, destroyed. Probably, I mean, we'll see over the next few days what happens to the Adelaide Festival at large, whether or not more artists withdraw. But I've got to say, I mean, if you're not, I've said this, I said this at least 5 months ago, or 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago. If you're not on side by now, then you're never going to be on side. The fact is that you enjoy watching Arabs die. I think that now the battle lines as they are have been crystallized. All that we have left are people who enjoy watching Arabs die in the Middle East. And it's not out of any love for Jews, make no mistake. It's because the perception in the West is that Israel is a white society. It's a Western society, and good on them for murdering hundreds of thousands of Arabs. And this won't stop. So don't be shocked. They love this shit. Check chat, okay. Spread a never again message with Holocaust-based media, making people think that it means never again for anyone, and then realizing that so many, not all, so many of those films meant never again for our group. We don't really care about any other group. Looking back at the decades of cinema that pushed this, it's overwhelming. I mean, I kind of, on the one hand, I do have a harsh view of people, but on the other hand, like, people have been propagandized for so long, for decades and decades and decades. And it's not, many people aren't the first group. We had Native Americans in Hollywood prior to that. We saw that with the Little Feather thing with Marlon Brando, where she was booed on stage for saying, look, for the past several decades, you've made Indians look like savage barbarians. You've made your audience cheer on or whatever, they kill any number of us. And this pattern has repeated over and over again. And it suits whatever geopolitical narrative is at play at the time, whether it's Russians, Chinese people, Vietnamese people, Arabs, Aboriginals in this country. God knows, people still hate Indigenous Australians in this country. It's not about to change. It is like, I don't want to get what's the word here? I don't want to get into kind of like this fundamental racial epigenetic sort of speculation about a certain group of Anglophones who just, their view of life is just killing a lot of people and dominating in order to survive. But it does feel like that for me. Like, it's very difficult to not see how that's not the case. And, I mean, generalizations are only the first top-level filter. I don't feel that way about people in general, no matter how much I might call you crackers. But it's a corker. I will put it that way. Good evening. I'm getting ready for bed, but I have your mobile, Habibi. I can hear you. Tisba al-Akhir. Masalam. Yeah. Just have a good night, Habibi. I'm hearing some classic metalhead stuff. Yes, that was metalheads. Real as the through Shana Cranky Hands. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I've been rambling inanely about various topics. I'm going to raid Dave Legend now, or Dave Legend, depending on how you choose to look at it. This has been a very quick Friday night raid. I've just come, Friday night stream. I've just come from dialysis, and I felt I needed to get this bit of Australian news off my chest. Thank you for joining me, though. I do love you all. Nice to see you, Shanna. Nice to see you, Elevated Lady. Nice to see you, of course, Habibi Keckles. And thank you for the raid. Thank you for the raid, Kairos. That set ended just in time. Rained. Just excuse me while I... decided to tune in more even though you didn't want us to. Yeah. Don't listen to my rambling. It's embarrassing. Anyway, thank you for being here. Wherever you are in the world, good night, good morning, or good afternoon, or something. And enjoy the rest of your day.